we'll talk about that in a little further down the line, but really the reason why I wanted to do this is because I've been doing this for a number of years, and as you guys know, my other half, he owns Two Broke Spokes, and when he was opening the shop, he's like, well, who do I get? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, hello, why aren't you with me? Why aren't you? He's like, yeah, but my point of sale system that I want doesn't integrate to you guys. And I said, okay, if you go with that point of sale system, you're going to be paying a very high effective rate if you want to be integrated. If you de-integrate, you still get the point of sale system. I can get you to a low effective rate because that's friends and family, right? And as you know, he had obviously positive results with that. I was talking to other business owners like you guys about credit card processing, and not so much to garner business, just to see what you guys knew about credit card processing. And a lot of people don't really understand it. It's a very complicated, interchange is very complicated to understand, and the card brands do that on purpose. So what I'm trying to do here is give you the tools so that when you are looking for a payment processor or you're unhappy with your existing payment processor, you've got these tools in your back pocket and you can say, listen, I know exactly what's going on. I know what's up. I know the terminology here. This is what I want. I want a fair price. So I'm just going to go through a few things, and you know, feel free to ask questions along the way. Some of it may be covered throughout, but I'll let you know. So today's topics: interchange qualification, tiered pricing, downgrades, pass-through pricing, basis points, per item fees, effective rate, chargebacks, PCI fees, pro tips, and what are you actually paying for? Did anybody bring their statement with them, their processing statement with them? Nope, okay.
I can probably access mine online.
Well, yeah, most people can. There's gonna be a little exercise at the end of it, so those that have will be able to participate, and those that don't we'll talk about it later. Anyway, let's go on. All right. Interchange. Interchange is in card processing. Interchange is the money transferred from the acquiring bank to the issuing bank for each bank card transaction. Interchange fees account for the majority of credit card processing costs and are established by the card brands: Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and AMEX. Okay. Now that's a very basic way to describe interchange. You know, you've got your front-end processor, you've got your back-end processor, you've got a lot of people actually touching this, and every single person gets a cut of that. So when a credit card transaction takes place, the issuing bank pays the acquiring bank for their cardholder's purchase, less the interchange fee for the transaction. The acquiring bank then pays the merchant from the remaining balance minus a markup for processing the transaction. So on our little graph here, or little picture here, you see the customer, you see the merchant, you see the payment gateway. And this in and of itself is where the magic happens, that payment gateway. That is where a lot of people are involved in. And then the credit card processor, the credit card associations, and the credit card issuing bank. Okay, so this is very wordy, and it's very wordy on purpose because interchange is very complicated. So qualification, does anybody know what that means before reading all of this stuff? I don't know, nobody? Okay, this is really good. I like this, so I can bestow some knowledge upon you. The portion of a transaction that's taken by an issuing bank for interchange depends on the interchange category that the transaction falls under as dictated by the card brands. The process of categorizing a transaction is called interchange qualification, and it happens on a per transaction basis. So a number of factors are used when determining how a transaction qualifies. So is it EMV? Is it an EMV transaction? Did you swipe that card? Did you key in that card? All of those factor into what your qualification is going to be. So also the type of card. Is it a business card? Is it a debit card? Is it, all those things kind of factor into it. So there are certain things that merchants can control, or you guys can control, and then there are the other things that you guys can't control. Like, for example, the type of card the person uses, okay? So the things that you can't control would be the card type, the card brand, and the card owner, okay? And you're gonna have this PowerPoint so they can read a little bit more in depth.
Do all of those specific qualifications, you want to take questions now or at the end?
You can take it, yeah, I'd rather.
Okay, so for all the qualifications, does that drive the associated fee? So for example, with the association, I've got a Square.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm at the market, somebody hands me the credit card, I swipe it, or we now actually upgraded, we actually have the dip capability, the bigger Square, so we can dip, so that's more secure, or we swipe, and that's at a set rate that we pay Square.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm at home and somebody calls me and says, hey, I want to buy a flag, as an example, and I take their credit card number over the phone and I pull up my Square, plug it in, that's at an even higher
absolutely,
rate.
yes.
And that I assume is because on their end, are they doing more Square-wise?
No, it's the reason, so the reason why that's higher is because it's an unsafe way to take a credit card for a number of reasons. Number one, you don't have that physical card. So if that card holder decides to charge it back, despite whether or not they got the actual flag, just to not have to pay for it. This happens a lot in our industry. They can just charge it back. So all that work to process that transaction, now we need to send it back. That costs money. Actually, we're gonna go into chargebacks in a bit, but it's the least safe way to get
Okay, so because they're
payment.
assuming more risk,
Right.
they're gonna charge a higher rate because I didn't actually physically look at the card and go, not that anybody does, but
Right.
flip it over, look at the signature, match it up with the person's ID. Again, nobody does it anymore.
Right.
But because it's higher risk.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The same way that business cards are higher risk. So yeah, you're gonna pay higher interchange on business cards. The reason why business cards are higher risk is because business cards, you're traveling typically. Like you're going from town to town. If you lose your card, somebody can go and, run it up or whatever. And it'll take days before you actually find out because it's a business card. It's not your card. It's a business card. If you work for like a corporation like, EVO. So a lot of times those type of cards will actually take 2 days to even settle. Just because most payment processing banks want to hold on to that transaction just so that in the event that this person wants to charge it back, it hasn't even processed yet or settled. All right. So we're going to talk about the types, the methods of pricing, okay? So tiered pricing. Tiered pricing is probably the most complicated to understand. And it's basically but it is one of the most common ways that credit card processing companies charge their merchants for transactions. So tiered merchant accounts work on a system of qualification. We just talked about qualification, right? So to determine which rate tier a merchant's transaction falls into, these are called bins, rate buckets, or buckets. It might look like this. So you might have a qualified discount rate. So let's say you've got a debit card and it's an EMV and it was dipped. You inserted that chip. That's the best kind of transaction that you can take, right? That one is going to be priced at 1 point whatever percent. A mid-qualified discount rate, which is just your basic credit card. Not a business card, just a credit card that they did EMV with, that you inserted the chip. And then you have your non-qualified discount rate. These are the worst transactions. These are your swipes. These are your keyed-in transactions. Those will, you can see, it jumps a significant amount depending on the qualification, okay? So it is kind of complex because when you're taking a card, you're not really looking at, oh, is this a debit card? You know, you kind of don't have control over that. You just get paid. So tiered pricing is saying, like, you know, we get it. You don't understand, you can't pick which cards you come in, but we're going to charge you for each type of card at a different rate. And you will mostly fall into the mid-qualified discount rate, especially your restaurants, your retail environments. Restaurants, unfortunately, typically fall in the non-qualified discount rate because they typically don't take EMV. It just slows them down. So that's usually the reason why they don't, and they're paying a lot of money for that.
What is EMV again?
EMV is the chip cards. Inserting the chip. That's what EMV is. Okay. All right, so downgrade. So this is, let's talk about the non-qualified ones, right? Your downgrade. So the type of card is one thing that will cause a transaction to be downgraded. The brand, whether it's a private or business card, whether it's a cashback or rewards card, and any other things that are handled differently by different account providers. Business owners usually don't have the luxury of deciding what kind of cards their customers may use to pay, and they end up paying unnecessary fees each time a customer pays with a card that does not fall into that acquirer's strict definition for qualification. Furthermore, the method used to charge a card matters. So like I said, keying in the credit card number as opposed to swiping the card will almost always cause a downgrade. Not verifying the address of the card by asking the zip code will cause a downgrade. What's more, the various rate tiers obscure the actual interchange fees. The merchant pays fees based on questionable criteria set by the acquirer for the acquirer's benefit, with little relation to the interchange fees that govern the wholesale of the fee in the background. So what does that mean? Anybody can tell me what that means? That lingo? Basically, it's saying that you really don't have control over a lot of what you get charged as far as tiered pricing is concerned. They make the rules. They decide whether this is a qualified transaction or not. And by they, I mean the card brands, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, okay?
Hey, Stephanie, let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
So Europe, of course, is like totally chip at
Yes.
this point.
They were chipped before we were.
Way before
Yeah.
us. And we're finally starting to get to that point.
Mhm.
So is it intentional that the industry is slow rolling out the chips because then they can do the downgrade and therefore pick up a higher percentage? Because if every American, every person in the US had a chip card and every vendor had a machine that could read the chip, now you're at that lowest tier pricing. So the EVOs of the world
Yeah.
and all of the banks and the credit card manufacturers would be at a lower tier,
Right.
the lowest tier, 1.5, whatever. So is that intentional?
It's not intentional. So card processing, credit card processing and the card brands, it's not a very well governed type of industry, okay? What I can tell you is that most merchants, and I've been doing this for a number of years, they have a problem becoming EMV. They are, uncomfortable with the change of EMV. So it's a matter of trying to explain to our merchants, hey, this is gonna benefit you. It's gonna make your rates go down. And some people just don't like change. Now, there are certain industries that are mandated to do EMV. For example, your fuel card, or when you go get gas, they were mandated to be all EMV compliant by last year, October of last year. They couldn't get the technology together. They couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure out do they keep the card until the gas is finally pumped, and that, like, how do we do this? It was an impasse, and we still haven't been able to go EMV. So a part of it has to do with just merchants and their behavior, and a part of it has to do with just not having the technology there, or not being able to figure out how to make it work. So pass-through pricing. Pass-through pricing, this is what I put my merchants on. It's, personally, I feel it's the most fair way to price a merchant. So pass-through pricing is a form of credit card pricing that allows the actual cost of processing to be passed directly to your business. The benefits of interchange pass-through are transparency and lower costs when compared to bundled or tiered models. With pass-through pricing, a processor's rate and transaction fee are separate from interchange and assessments. This allows them to be consistent regardless of the actual cost of a transaction. With other types of processing, such as tiered, the processing rate includes interchange and assessments all bundled together, which has the effect of essentially concealing the actual cost and resulting in hidden fees. So the reason why I put my merchants on pass-through is this. Pass-through accounts for those cardholders that have business cards. It accounts for the downgrades. It basically does an average, and it says, this is the rate we're going to give you. It's not going to change. It's very transparent in it. You're going to pay this percentage point or this percent off of every transaction. You're not guessing what your effective rate is. And it saves you from all those downgrades, honestly, is what it saves you more than anything. So if you're going to get priced when you are talking to a payment processor, tell them pass through. Don't take anything less than pass through, in my personal opinion. Go ahead. Did you have a question? Oh, okay, sorry. All right. I need everybody understand that? Okay. Okay, basis points plus pricing. So Ty, you probably know what a basis point is.
A little bit.
Okay, all right. The word plus refers to the processor's markup that's applied to each credit card transaction. The markup is typically expressed as a basis point accompanied by an authorization fee. So basis points is equal to 1/100th of a percentage point, and the processor's markup is typically measured in basis points. Any percentage based fee can be expressed in basis points. For example, Visa's current interchange fee for a swipe consumer credit card is 1.54, plus a transaction fee of 10 cents. Measured in basis points, this fee would be 154 basis points, 1.54%. So I'm going to tell you a story. I had a merchant. He said, hey, I'm getting gouged. Processes about 6,700 transactions a month. A $2.3 million a year business. He owns a pub. Not in our neighborhood, so. But he was paying out about $2,200 in fees a month. And when I looked to see what he was priced at 154 basis points. So he was priced at this. That's why I kind of went with this model. On top of interchange. So you got your interchange, you got your Visa, your MasterCard, your Discover that charge you whatever, your 1%, your 2%, whatever. And then on top of it, payment processor is taking a very large cut. All right. Per item fee. These are your each transaction fee. So per transaction fee. Per item is part of the plus of the interchange plus pricing system. The per item fee refers to the cent charge for each actual authorization. Better name for this fee would be a per authorization fee. So if you're talking to a payment processor and they're saying, oh, I can price you at 30 basis points and 10 cents. Yes, they're pricing you at 30 basis points plus 10 cents each transaction. Very large cut. So, all right, effective rate. So, most credit card processing statements are difficult for merchants to understand. Often merchants are wondering how much they're actually paying for the ability to take credit cards. Your effective rate gives you this information, okay? So the summary section of your statement tells you the total amount of credit cards processed in a month, number of transactions, returns, chargebacks, and the total fees billed for the month. To get your effective rate, you need two numbers. You need the total fees that you paid and the total credit card volume that you processed. To calculate the effective rate, divide the total fees charged by the total credit card volume for the month. For example, if your total fees for the month are $300 and you accepted $10,000 in credit cards, the calculation will look like this: 300 divided by 10,000, 3%. The overall effective rate takes all of your per transaction fees, fixed monthly fees, any additional fees, and lumps them into one rate. This lets you manage your overall cost of accepting cards so that you can factor the fees into your profit margin. So if you go and you calculate your effective rate and you call your payment processor and you say, I've calculated my effective rate and I'm paying over 3%. First of all, they're going to be surprised that you even know what that is, okay? And secondly, it gives you some bargaining power because now they're afraid that you actually know what you're talking about. So take that as a piece of advice. Always have your effective rate, know your effective rate. Yes?
You know, your 1%, your 2%, whatever, and then on top of it,
typical that it's, let's say, the 2.5%
payment processors taking a very large cut.
Is that sort of typical?
Per item fee, these are your, and when I looked to see what he was priced at, he was priced at.
Why is it that you go into stores and say, oh, you want to buy your Chinese food?
So he was priced at this.
Right.
That's why.
Because it's only a 10-cent addition to that
On
transaction.
top of interchange.
You know what I mean?
So
I understand. I never understood why businesses do that because it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you. I think it's just a way for them to make somebody spend at least $10. If it's, for example, if it's a debit transaction, they cannot surcharge you like that. It's actually illegal. So if you ever go into like a gas station I went into the other day, I literally just had to buy a bottle of water. And the lady was like, nope, you have to spend $10. I said, I work for the credit card companies. You don't have to do that. You absolutely do not have to do that. You can say, it's a debit transaction by law, you need to take this. If they do not, and I decide to report them, that's a $10,000 fine. Okay, and a lot of merchants don't know that. It's not the Wild Wild West. There are rules.
Per item fee, these are your, and when I looked to see what he was priced at,
Right.
he was priced at.
Safest transaction.
Credit transaction where they're paying
So he was priced at this.
Right.
That's why I kind of,
it just seems strange.
Yeah.
It's only a 10-cent thing.
on top of.
Well, it's not a 10. It's a 10-cent
So
per
you got
item
your
fee
interchange,
on
you
top
got your
of
Visa, your MasterCard,
what
your Discover,
the processing is.
that charge
Yes.
you whatever, you know, your 1%.
Per transaction per item,
and
same
then
thing.
on top of it,
So if I buy like 3 things, it's 1.10,
payment
it's 30
processors
cents.
taking
If
a
I buy
very
like
large cut.
10 cents.
All right.
Difference. Yep.
Per
Yeah.
item fee, these are your.
Your
and,
squares.
when
Your
I
squares.
looked to see
Squares
what
are
he was
flat
priced at,
fees.
he was priced at,
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
So he was priced at this. That's why I kind of.
Yeah, it is. It is per swipe. That's what you're saying.
No,
Right?
no, I'm
top
saying
of
if I go to the register with.
So you got your interchange, you got your Visa, your MasterCard, your Discover.
Oh no. I thought you meant you were doing a transaction. No. If you go up there, it's 10 cents for that transaction. Yes. Which, 10 cents isn't an unreasonable amount in this industry. Now, if it was like 15 cents,
these are your.
you might want to get your
And when I looked.
talk to your payment
price
processor.
that, he was priced at,
Okay. Chargebacks. Woo. This is
so
not
he
the
was
fun
priced
part of my
at
job.
this.
Because mostly merchants are very angry when they get a chargeback. So a chargeback happens when a customer requests their bank returns their funds for a purchase, or when a customer's bank detects the problem with a transaction. They frequently occur when a consumer is unable to obtain a refund directly from you, the merchant, and instead forcibly takes their money back. Now, I'm going to tell you that yeah,
And,
that
when I
happens,
looked to
but a
see
lot
what
of
he was
times,
priced at, he was priced
chargebacks
at,
happen because the cardholder doesn't want to pay for a meal,
so he was priced
doesn't want to
at
pay
this.
for
That's why
clothes, whatever it is. I mean, I have merchants
on
calling me
top
say,
of-
I have the receipt
So
that they
you've got your
signed.
interchange, you got
Like
your
this
Visa,
is,
your
you know,
MasterCard, your
yeah, it
Discover
wasn't an EMV transaction,
that
number
charge
one.
you
And
whatever,
number two,
you know, your 1%
they didn't want to pay
change,
for it.
whatever. And then on
Unfortunately,
top of it,
you know, it happens in this industry.
payment processing.
Chargebacks are generally bad for the merchants as they come with fees that range between $20 and $100. If a business has too many chargebacks as a percentage of their total transactions, their account can be shut down and their per transaction costs may go up significantly. If you're getting a lot of chargebacks as a merchant, you're going to be blackballed from the industry. As they come with fees, there's a flag on your account that's going to say, there's something funny going on. Why is everybody refunding or asking for their money back? And directly from transaction costs may go up. Right. Something's going on. Something funny is going on. A merchant, you're going to be blackballed from the industry. Unfortunately, now the merchant is on your account that's going to say there's something funny going on or service that they provided to that cardholder, and they get directly from with a chargeback. Right. Something's going on. Something funny is going on. So. Best way to prevent credit card chargebacks is to adhere to policies and guidelines set forth by each of the payment processing networks. According to Visa, the most common chargeback reasons include there's something a credit card, a credit has not been processed when the consumer expected it would be. It happens all the time. So sometimes, so let's say you have some free thing something's going on, something funny is going on. And the transactions don't go through. Unfortunately, now the merchant 3 days later. A cardholder looks at their account. They're like, I wasn't there there's today. Why am I being charged for that? They call their credit card company. They say that it's a fraudulent transaction, that they weren't at that place at that day. And then the merchant something's going on. The merchant is on the hook for it, unfortunately. And there's really no way to prevent that. Now the merchant. I mean, you can fight it. You can fight a chargeback. A lot of times it's difficult to fight them, especially if you're non-EMV. Funny going on. If you are non-EMV, you really don't have asking for as much power there. If you are EMV, you typically won't even get to the chargeback. Right. Something's going on. Something it won't even get to the chargeback portion because you're EMV. Unfortunately, EMV, now the merchant, take a step back for 1 second. EMV back maybe 3 years ago, when it started coming out. There's something funny going on. Why is everybody refunding? Merchants didn't have the EMV terminals. They, it was kind of all coming from little by little. Now, what the card brands tried to do to encourage these merchants to finally go EMV was they said, listen, right now, the liability falls on the credit card when somebody charges it back. But if you don't go EMV, the merchant will be liable. So now if you're non-EMV, you are liable for that chargeback. But if you are EMV, the credit card company, bank institution is liable for that. It's an EMV transaction. It was signed off. I have everything, receipt, everything like that. This is a valid transaction. Merchandise ordered was never received. A service was not performed as expected. The customer did not make the purchase. It was fraudulent. A processing error occurred, which is kind of what I told you about the free POS accident, and authorization issues. Okay? Yes?
Back to fighting the chargeback.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've never had this issue, but I've seen others in my industry
Mm-hmm.
who have fought, and they've proved it with a photo that they were there.
Mm-hmm.
So we always take photos of people and like take pictures of the end.
Right.
Is that like?
I would not count on that. Okay. There are, and understand that these are the credit card brands that are determining whether a transaction is fraudulent or not. There are a lot of credit card brands like Visa, MasterCard, that they are a lot more reasonable with chargebacks. American Express is probably not the best for that. They always side with their card holders. So you could have a lot of proof, but if it wasn't an EMV transaction, they're not going to side with you. So that's something to consider. Yes, it's unfortunate, but
When we're talking about the like also the digital like Apple Pay
and NFC, it's called near frequency communication.
are they
and
the
our-
same as far as
It's as the same as EMV. It's the same as EMV. It's a very safe transaction. Even though I kind of question it sometimes, like, you know, can't somebody just take my phone and whatever?
right,
but
right.
but you know, I mean, these are kind of attached at the hip, so it's highly unlikely that it is a fraudulent transaction. But yeah, it is just as good as EMV.
Yeah, 'cause I know from security the fingerprint is pretty
Yeah,
it's pretty hard to
yeah,
crack. So
exactly. So yeah, good question. Any other questions before that? Okay. PCI fees. Woo! Who has fees? You have PCI fees?
I
Okay.
did it for 2 years and it killed me.
Okay. All right. So PCI, sometimes abbreviated as PCI DSS. Look at your statement. See if you have that fee on there. A lot of people don't even realize they have that fee. It is a set of rules that any organization handling credit cards or payment information is expected to abide by in order to minimize the risk of that data falling into the hands of fraudsters, hackers, depending on your merchant level, which is determined by the total volume of your sales per year. A different set of rules may apply to you. Okay, it's also the type of business that you run. If you're an accountant, you have a lot of information. You have socials, you have credit card, all that stuff. So Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express all expect the processors and merchants to adhere to PCI standards. If a data breach happens as a result of a PCI non-compliance, the card networks may fine your processor for failing to maintain standards. So yeah, it's we get fined when our merchants are not, when they get breached. Okay. Now, we do have insurance in the event that that happens, so that we're not like coming completely out of pocket. But if you ever have a credit card processor and they are charging you an insane amount a month for PCI, it's because you're not PCI compliant.
So I have a question. How do you find out if your merchant charges you PCI fees?
You should be able to look at it in your statement. They have to detail that. Every single card brand charges for PCI fees. Some of them like to hide it and pretend like it's not a PCI fee, or name it something creative. But everybody pays for it because it is mandated by the card brands.
Okay, so I'm just a tiny bit confused when you talk about card brand versus my merchant.
Mm-hmm.
What is card brand is Visa, MasterCard, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Are they charging me separate from Square?
So no. So okay, so here, all the card brands, every year they're like, here are the rules. If you don't follow the rules, or if you don't make your merchants follow the rules, we're going to fine you. So we pass on all of what they're requesting from us to you guys. And there have been times where we've had merchants that you refuse to be PCI compliant, and they just pay higher fees because of it. And you know, if you can easily make sure that your network is safe and secure, you can save yourself sometimes. I mean, there are credit card processing companies that charge over $150 a month in PCI, so because they're not compliant. So do yourself a favor, not only just to save yourself money, but to keep your customers' information safe.
So
I've had.
Your merchant should be PCI compliant. So that's,
Yes.
I don't have to do my PCI compliance. The merchant has to.
Well, you are the merchant.
All right.
Yes.
So I still have to do PCI.
Oh,
compliance.
yes.
Oh, that's
Yes.
what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. Yes. So and if anybody's gone through it, have you gone through the
I
the
don't
scans?
even want to think about it. It's so stressful.
Yeah.
Has anybody here done it? It's miserable. It takes like 4 hours. You have to answer 100
Yep.
million questions that don't make any sense if you're not an IT person.
Yes.
So you don't recommend.
Well, it's like being in jail in Guantanamo.
Yeah.
It's that horrible.
So, okay, here's the thing is that there are a lot of people that do the installation of your point of sale system, right? And they make sure that your network is secure.
Ooh,
So,
like an IT person? I've never even
yeah,
thought of
there are a lot of POS people that do both. They do networking for your business, and then they do the point of sale system. They program it and everything like that. And some resellers will take the PCI exam for you.
That is what I want.
Because they've set up the network. They know exactly, you know.
Do you have anybody you can recommend?
I have a lot of people.
Please.
Yeah, we can definitely talk. Absolutely. All right.
And the reason I'm confused when you say merchant
Mm-hmm.
was because when I was with a program called MindBody,
Mm-hmm.
they had a separate merchant that processed. It was our merchant service, our
Okay.
merchant provider,
Payment processor.
our merchant payment processor, and that was like it was a third party outside of MindBody.
Ah.
And I think, I don't know if Square does it that way too, like, does Square use the payment processing inside of them, or do they have a third party?
So, okay, that's a really good question. So there are, and this is getting pretty granular. So it's okay. So what happens is there are a lot of people in this industry. It is a very, very, very huge industry. So there are people that install your point of sale system. They're either called resellers or dealers. Oh, my POS dealer, my POS reseller. Then there are ISOs. ISOs are independent sales people, and they price your accounts, they write the paper, they do all of that, and they'll even send you a statement every month. And you think that they're your processor. They're not your processor. They're not your processor. In fact, they use a processor and they just white label their company. So you got to do your research on those in those particular situations, because a lot of times you just want to deal with your payment processor directly. You know, it's not to say that ISOs are bad or anything like that, but
Do you have any idea if Square itself is the merchant processor?
yes, they are.
They are, okay.
Yes, they are.
I feel
Yes,
better.
yes, they
I'll
are.
talk to you more afterwards.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, they are.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So to remain compliant and avoid fees, do that self-assessment questionnaire once a year. And it'll also scan, I think, every month. It'll scan your network to see if there are any vulnerabilities, okay? Most processors will charge a PCI fee. And then if you're non-compliant, that fee will be substantially higher. All right, pro tips. We're almost done here, y'all. So pro tips, reduce hand key and voice authorization transactions. Does everybody know what voice auth is? Yes. So let's say you have your credit card, and let's say you're swiping that card and it's not going through, and the cardholder is saying, there's money on that account. There's money on that account. You can always call your payment processor and you can have them process the transaction on their end. Those voice authorization transactions, though, they're higher interchange. You're going to get downgraded for voice auths, okay? They're considered high risk by issuing banks and the card associations. As a result, these transactions are subject to higher processing fees. Accept PIN debit if you're able to. EMV transactions and EMV debit are the best qualifying transactions. That 4-digit PIN provides additional security, which makes them less risky transactions. Okay. Train your employees about downgrades. You can avoid unnecessary downgrade patterns to optimize both your processing behavior at the point of sale and subsequent rates that you're paying for the transactions. That is a really important bullet point. Train your employees. Train your employees about credit cards and accepting credit cards. I'm going to tell you one story, and it never leaves my mind because I always tell my merchants this when they finally get their new point of sale system. We had a merchant that provided me with a statement. I did a pricing analysis and I said, man, I could save you like $200 a month. Great, that sounds good. She comes on with us, and she then calls me a month later, and she is yelling at me. My fees were $500 more with you guys. What are you talking about? You're ripping me off, so on and so forth. And I was like, there's no way. I had strategic look into this and analyze it and everything. Like, there's no way. What's going on? One of our tech reps looked at the transactions, and all of the transactions between certain hours of the day were being keyed in massively. This is a retail. This is a store, okay? So it turned out that two of the employees, it turned out that two of the employees were competing against each other as to who could key in cards faster, and who could key in cards faster and make their lines go faster by keying them in. Okay, so when you're talking to your employees, make sure that, listen, by all means try to avoid keying in a transaction. By all means try to avoid keying in a transaction. Make sure that you swipe that card or dip the chip. That'll save you some money and unnecessary headaches and a bad call to me, because I don't like those either. So last thing is negotiate with your credit card processors. Shop around for pricing and other payment processors that integrate to your point of sale, okay? Always do that. Do that every year. Do that every year. I mean, at some point, there's not much more that can be saved, because, it's like credit card processing company, the card brands, it's like a casino, okay? House always wins. We are never going to price ourselves out to a point where we're paying for your credit card processing. So understand that there is going to be a cap at some point, but that doesn't mean you can't still call every year and say, I want a rate review my rates. I want to see what I'm paying. How much can you save me? Every dollar counts. You guys know as merchants that you're trying to reduce that overhead as much as possible. And credit card processing is a big bill at the end of the month. Do you have a question? No? Okay.
I actually want to follow up to what
Yeah.
you were saying before. I looked up on the internet, and Square is already PCI compliant, which means somebody on their end is doing the horrible, disastrous.
Yeah,
You
no,
know what I'm sure?
no, it's not. Because it's not based off of them. It's based off
Oh,
of your
because I have
network.
to check my connection and my internet, and
That's what it is. Yeah.
so they might be compliant in their own.
Yeah, they're PCI compliant. Their network is fabulous, right? They're not going to get breached. If they get breached, it's like by a Russian. I don't know.
Right, so
Right?
every single business should be PCI compliant.
Every single business should be PCI compliant. It just makes sense. It makes sense. You don't ever want to get a phone call saying from one of your cardholders, one of your merchant or customers saying somebody stole or somebody, took my identity.
Like Target.
Like Target. And yes, like Target. And guess what happens? Now that merchant or that cardholder doesn't trust you or your organization. Furthermore, they can rate you on Google, Facebook, all of those stuff. Don't take the risk. Yes, go ahead.
I think it just, everybody realizes, is there anybody in the room that hasn't had a credit card act?
I have.
I have not.
Has anybody not? Never had? No, has anybody not
I've never had a
ever?
credit card hack.
You've never had a
Never.
card, right? You go on one?
I don't think I have.
I don't know that I have. I've had the bank tell me that it's been compromised, so they send a new one.
Yeah, so then that's
So
it, yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Anybody you never had a card ever in your whole life?
I'm
I got a credit card the other day.
Let me see this
It
card.
was compromised. Yeah, it's like steel titanium. It was compromised before I even activated it.
Oh my gosh.
So it came in the mail. I called and they said, "Oh, we're really sorry, but your card we have to deny your activation because your credit card was compromised." And I literally had just got it out of the mail. And I'm like, how does that happen,
right?
How does that happen when you even activate it?
Yes, it is.
Well,
Okay,
yeah,
I
it
mean,
was
it happens.
activated, right? Because the scary thing is, and then my next card that I got was an RFID card. The You guys seen those where you basically, you don't have to do anything, you just walk up, if you're close to the keypad,
Mhm.
and you tap it, I guess
Yeah.
is what you're supposed to do.
That it's called near frequency communication,
Okay,
NFC.
NFC, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, I'm just saying, it's amazing, so if that's broadcasting and it's coming through the mail,
Mm-hmm.
could the mailman or somebody come up to your mailbox, but if it's not been activated yet, you know what I mean?
Your
How would
computer
you
could have
even-
been. I don't know. It's
bizarre.
so. I had the other day. My card was used at Home Depot, and it was like a $60 charge, and I was like, I haven't been to Home. Like I haven't spent money in Home Depot in a long time.
I was gonna say. They're in Publix.
Yeah, no, I don't spend the money. Kurt spends money at Home Depot, not me. So I was like, this is not right, and my card was breached. They don't know how it happened. I'm like, how did this? Can you tell me that somebody, couldn't tell me. They don't know. But the good thing is that they know when it's a fraudulent transaction most times. It's weird. I don't know how they
Like behavior algorithms.
yeah, it's just maybe behavior algorithms, but they will. Have you ever been to a place and your card won't go through because they're just
Especially if you're traveling,
exactly.
If you're out of your normal pattern, whenever I go to Texas, like a lot of times it'll be denied.
That's why I call my bank beforehand.
You say a lot of times I do beforehand, but then when it gets denied, I like that my bank actually calls me like almost immediately after I get phone calls verifying not just that transaction, but a couple others.
Yep. And sometimes they make you verify the transactions in
Yeah.
order to let that transaction go through. Okay, well, where did you go yesterday? When was the last time you spent money?
Yeah.
They quiz you.
I know. I'm like,
Yeah.
shit, I don't
She's
know.
like, wait a second. Let me pull up my. Yeah, exactly.
Which is real weird when they call
Oh no,
you,
that was a micro.
and then they ask you sensitive information, which you're not supposed to give unless you call them.
Yeah.
You have no way of verifying who they are, who they say
Yeah,
they are.
exactly. It's crazy, but so they do, I guess, have some kind of algorithm, and that's another reason why business cards have higher interchange rates, just because most times when you have a business card, your business is the one that's keeping track of the transactions, not so much you, and that's why they hold on to those transactions for like a day or two, typically.
I think our business cards have been hacked maybe 10 times because we order so many business
Mm-hmm.
job materials.
Oh yeah.
We order them from Amazon or, the companies, and, all of a sudden I'll be balancing the credit cards statements, trying to figure it out, and there'll be charges, trips to the Philippines, to Saudi Arabia,
Mm-hmm.
for thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
And, I'll get them taken off
Yeah.
right away. The credit card company won't even question them.
Yeah.
But, we know that, after we order these job materials, they've got our number.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, somebody's spending the money like crazy.
Yeah. That's why I'm telling you, business cards are higher up there.
Well, but is there really a sense, so like, in the scenario that Brendan just mentioned, a lot of that, I know that, a lot of that information, I'm gonna sound like this old man right now, but on the dark web, that the kids are talking about, but a lot of that information is like it's traded freely.
Mm-hmm.
So does a business card really inherently have the same, I mean, it seems like you would have the
So-
same risk at a card number as a card number.
It may have the same risk, but business cards are typically business cards have large credit lines.
Right.
So people, they are just like, that's the card that I want. If I want to go to the Philippines, get a business card. You're going to have enough money to do that. If I go for,
My card.
I mean, where are you going to go? Maybe maybe a bus pass. I don't know. Exactly. Yeah. So exactly. So to her point, she's getting, because she's got a large credit line and they can do that.
But it's such a major inconvenience because then, you gotta wait for another credit card,
And it
business
stops your
card
business.
for 10 days, and you know, it stops everything.
Yeah.
Some of the major banks now, you can like, and not that it's a major bank, but Tampa Bay Federal Credit on Nebraska, you can walk in and they will print a card for you right there in the bank, 5 minutes, they get where it is, and to activate it, you walk over to their ATM machine, you plug it in, you punch in, you set the PIN, and that way you're never on the phone.
Suncoast does that too.
Then you get home and it's already been used in Australia.
He's still
Is there
Still
a
hurting.
difference between business debit cards and business credit cards?
there's typically no business debit unless it's like the owner of the business.
I think,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
what I
what
have a business that.
Because you're the owner.
Because
Because you're the owner of the business.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Give at the same time.
Yeah. So yeah, because that's coming out of that is coming out of your business account.
So if I had some
It's not like
employees-
a line of credit.
If I had some employees, they couldn't get a debit card done, they'd have to have a credit card.
They'd have to have a credit card, right? Because you don't want them to
I
have
was
your
gonna
PIN.
say, you probably wouldn't want them to have a
Yeah.
credit card, I would think.
Right.
Yeah.
You are the
Yeah.
owner of that
You
account.
know, I very rarely use my personal debit card anymore. I don't even take the risk anymore.
Mhm.
It's not worth
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So, I know that most of you don't have your statements here, but I want you to go home and I want you to pay attention to a few things. I want you to look at it with a fresh new eyes. I want you to look at your statement fees. Or I'm sorry, I want you to figure out what your effective rate is. What is your percentage? Okay. Look for statement fees. If a credit card processor is charging you $20 to send you a statement, you need a new credit card processor. That's insane. Okay. Multiple PCI fees charged at once. You should only have one fee charged at a time, whether you're compliant or non-compliant. IRS reporting fee? No, you should not have to pay for that. And the last part, I want to talk about EVO because they're the label that pays me. And so EVO Payments International, we're publicly traded, leading payment technology and service provider. We offer an array of innovative, reliable, and secure payment solutions to merchants ranging from small, mid-size, multinational companies and organizations across North America and Europe, and we're actually in South America now. As a fully integrated merchant acquirer and payment processor in over 50 markets, 150 different currencies worldwide, we provide competitive solutions, promote business growth, increase customer loyalty, and enhance data security in the international markets we serve. So, if any of you would like me to do an in-depth pricing analysis for you, feel free to give me a call. If you don't have my card, let me give you one. You can email me a statement. I can have a price analysis done within 24 hours, typically. And you don't have to go with me, but you could always use that with your existing payment processor. So as kind of like a, bargaining chip, so to speak. Any
So,
questions?
yeah, you had said at the beginning that if we wanted to pull up our fees, that we could.
Yeah.
So I can just give some examples. On December 31st, a swipe went through on Square that was a 2.5% plus a plus 10. What
Right.
do you call the plus 10 again? A plus-
So that's a per item fee or an authorization fee.
Okay,
They're both one and the same.
yeah, and the plus point, they're not plus points, are they? Is that different?
So you have your basis points. So the basis points is the percentage,
Uh-huh.
and then the per item fee is,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I do want to make sure that you guys know this. You can go online, and you can go onto like the Visa website, and you can see what interchanges today. So it changes from time to time. But if you are considering getting a new payment processor or speaking with your existing payment processor, you can use that as another bargaining chip, saying, hey, listen, I know that Visa charges this interchange percentage, that MasterCard charges this interchange percentage, so on and so forth, but I'm still paying this amount, like I need a reduction here. What can you do for me?
Yeah, because I have a couple other charges that were 3.5 fees.
So, right.
And then that was a 15% plus point.
So you're on tiered.
Yeah, I'm on tiered.
You're on tiered.
So what would the 3.5 and the 2.5 be? Two different credit cards?
Those, so this is so those are the qualifications that they fall under. It could have been a manual transaction, could have been a business card. Yes. So that is something that tiered pricing. I don't put my merchants on tiered pricing just because it's not that it's a bad pricing method, because if you're taking debit, nothing but debit, you're good. Oh my gosh, tiered pricing is awesome for you because it's 1 point something percent.
Really?
Yeah, for debit card
But you have to go
transaction.
do the PIN code thing.
Yeah. So that's kind of the alternative. I mean, there are certain organizations like retail organizations that really benefit from tiered pricing because they're getting a lot of transactions. Like for example, Publix. Publix, when you put a debit card in there, it automatically asks you to put your PIN number in there. It doesn't say, is this a debit or a credit card transaction? It pushes you into that debit transaction. So tiered for them is probably really great because they're processing a lot of debit transactions and EBT transactions and all of that stuff, which have lower interchange fees. But for a restaurant, it's not going to work. Tiered typically isn't a good fit for a restaurant. For your organization, you've got all kinds of different people coming in. It's not as if, you know, they're purchasing like goods. They're there for entertainment, right? So you got all different kinds of customers coming in there. You don't know what cards they're bringing. You don't know if it's a business expense. You have no control over that. So tiered would not be good for your type of organization. Go ahead.
So, can the point of sale system, I'm thinking like buffet,
Mm-hmm.
the wine bar. Could the point of sale system be set up where you walk in, let's say it's a wine bill, my tab's $20,
Mhm.
and I gotta kind of think through this as I'm saying it. So I stick my debit card in, you're saying it could be set to automatically request a PIN,
Right.
right? And that way she's getting the lowest fee.
Right.
Okay, and then if I stick my, let's say if I want to swipe, no, so the other option would be a credit, but with a chip.
Right.
Can her system be set up to deny like a swipe because she only wants to accept a chip because that's also a lower rate?
So, I haven't seen a point of sale system deny credit cards. I haven't seen a point of sale system do that.
But I mean, to kind of walk you,
I have had it once where
Right.
I'll swipe and they're like, you need to insert it.
Right.
Yeah, I think they manually, like, they tape up the.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And so like policy, is that more of a policy thing?
So, right, it goes into, there's a number of factors that go into that, but really it goes into the file build of that terminal. The problem is the point of sale system that you select. So, and this is actually, when I first started with my company, I was on the operations side. I was more involved on the tech side, betaing and all of that stuff. There are terminals, there are PIN pads. PIN pads they're just dummy terminals. They don't have a mind of their own. They just do whatever the point of sale system tells them to do. Then you have very robust standalone terminals that you can program to only accept debit if it's a debit card, like not even giving you the option, or you can bypass it, but it's a pain in the butt to do. But really, so I can't really answer that question because it really depends on the point of sale system that you have.
Whether it's a Stripe.
Right.
Or
Exactly.
something
It also depends on your payment processor and what limitations they have in building your terminal or your PIN pad. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. That's why when you're a new merchant and you're shopping around for point of sale systems, this should take you a while. There are hundreds of payment or of point of sale systems that do hundreds of different things. Some fall into your business type, some don't. So you have to do your research You have to do your research and figure out what point of sale system is best for you. Yes?
Okay, so you do the credit processing part, but you don't do the terminal part, the POS part.
Right. So we don't install the point of sale system. What we do is we have resellers. These are people that do this for a living. They install, and they say, "Hey, merchant XYZ, I'm about to install their point of sale system. Can you please reach out to them and get them signed up with you?"
Clover goes through SunTrust. You buy Clover through SunTrust, and your banking goes through SunTrust.
Right.
It's
So
really convenient in that way because you don't have to worry about if you want a question answered, you walk into a SunTrust bank.
that's what they say. That is not accurate. Here's why. Anytime that you have a payment processor, they will always deposit into your bank. Anytime you need to give them a call, they should answer. That is the rules. Now, if SunTrust, they have a rep. That rep doesn't know a darn thing about payment processing. I can guarantee you that. They don't know about interchange. They don't know about this stuff. So here's what happens is they act as a conduit to speak to the payment processor. They are not the payment processor. They don't have gateways. They don't process payments like that. They are using Clover's gateways to process payments. So they like to use that as a selling tool, like, oh, if you get your system through us, you have a person right here that can help you at any time. They're not going to be the person that helps you. They will never be the person that helps you. All they do is shoot off an email to the right person. That's all they're doing. That's all they're doing.
But it is a convenience.
It is a
Yeah,
convenience.
To you, it's transparent. It seems seamless.
Right.
It is seamless.
Yeah, but
Because you walk into the SunTrust bank and you have a bank manager sitting there that'll handle
Right.
every problem.
right.
That's why.
Yeah, and there is the benefit of, listen, I know you, do right by me. There is that added benefit. But a lot of times when you're getting your point of sale from your bank, the person that is selling you or the person that is getting your business doesn't understand payment processing and how it's going to impact your business and how they should price you out. I know with a retail environment, they should be priced at this. I know with a restaurant, they should be priced at this because that is what I do for a living. I live, breathe it all. So unfortunately with these, and I have a lot of business from banks. A lot of merchants are saying, you know what? They told me that I was going to pay 2%. I'm paying 4% because they didn't understand how they were impacting that merchant and what pricing model they put them on. No, Clover is proprietary, unfortunately. There are point of sale systems that pigeonhole you in, and that's not necessarily a bad thing if the payment processor is an excellent payment processor like EVO Payments, right? But you have to do your research, huh?
So if I go with EVO, I have to go find a payment back.
Well, I mean, a lot of times what's happening, like for example, Kurt with Two Broke Spokes, my other half, he has Lightspeed point of sale system. Lightspeed only integrates with Cayenne TSYS front end processor, okay? They have a proprietary product. They will not allow us to integrate. Even though we can integrate, they will not allow us to integrate it because it is their product. And if you're going to use their product, they want you to use their payment processor because they get a kickback.
Is that the same thing for Clover as well?
Yes.
You guys can't work with Clover?
No. So in those instances, what I've been able to do, for example, with Two Broke Spokes is get them a standalone terminal. They can still process on their point of sale system. They can still order, do all the, what they need to do through their point of sale system. They just have a separate card processor. So that's something to consider and see how it works into your environment. But a lot of companies are starting to do that because they're like, or merchants are starting to do that because they're like, this point of sale system is perfect for me. I love it. But I've heard horrible things about customer service with this payment processor. So give yourself some room to research others and see if maybe that's a better fit for you.
What about Apple Pay? And like Samsung Pay, and all those, how does that hit? Is it like a credit card?
Yeah, it's like an EMV transaction. It's
Like
like
a
an
chip?
Yep.
Okay, so does it matter if the Apple Pay, the card I'm using on my watch is a debit card or a credit card?
Well, I mean, yeah. If it's a debit card, it's going to be lower.
It's still gonna hit like
Yeah,
a debit card?
yeah. The card type is still going to have its interchange,
The transaction
whatever.
is more of a secure one.
Right. It's just as secure as an EMV transaction. Right. All right. Thank you guys so much for your time. We're over like 15 minutes. So I appreciate it. Yes.